How's it going? Today, I'm talking about Dopey Race Part 4, Fueling and Hydrating.
This is Running to the Castle, a podcast for injury-prone Run Disney runners on a journey to running magical miles. Join me, Dr. Allie, as I share the secrets I've gathered as a runner, doctor of physical therapy, and coach. You'll learn the exact ways I get my clients to the castle strong without feeling broken or held together with KT tape as they cross the finish line.
This is such a big topic, and I go over it in depth with my Stronger, Faster Finisher clients, and we need to make sure that whoever is running is putting fuel in the tank. Basically, you need gas for the car, you need carbs for yourself. We talked about carb loading the other day. Today, we are talking about fueling and hydrating, specifically during the races. So, couple of things. I am going to be talking Dopey specific because that's the race that's coming up. It does apply to just marathon, goofy, just the half marathon, and just the 10K. Typically for the 5K, you don't need to carb load, okay? And that's because you won't be on the course. Typically, you won't be on the course long enough to fulfill the guidelines, the kind of the rules of when you need to when you need to fuel. So let's start with those first. The guideline is 60 to 90 grams of carbs per hour that you're out there beyond an hour. You will also hear it say out there beyond 90 minutes. For slow back of the pack runners, I think starting for the 60-minute mark, the 1 hour mark, is much more effective. So because you're going to be out there for so long, it's easier to start taking in fuel earlier when you're going to need it anyway. I think the 60 versus 90 minutes is more for somebody who's on the cusp of, am I going to be like maybe a 75-minute run? Okay, maybe I don't need carbs. Maybe I don't need fueling. But for the runners who are in my audience, you listening to this, you're slow, back of the pack. You're 13 plus minute per mile pace, maybe even 14, 15, or 16. Like you may be like holding hands with the balloon ladies kind of pace. And that's okay. I want to make sure that this information is relevant to you, not to Susie Q, who's an elite runner and she's running a half marathon in an hour and a half. Well, maybe she doesn't need fuel. I don't know. But you running a 3.5 or 4 hour half marathon, a 6 to 7, maybe even 7.5 hour marathon, and running 4 days in a row, 48.6 miles for the Dopey Challenge, your fueling strategy is going to be so incredibly different than the fast runners. And that's because it's based on the amount of time you're on the course. It's not based on how many miles you're running, because you need that energy to sustain you over the course of hours and hours and hours, not the number of miles you're running. Okay, so I never think about fueling in terms of how far is my run today. It's how long is my run today. I do that for long runs and I do that for race day. I do that for myself as a slow back of the pack runner, somebody who's not getting a proof of time anytime soon, and that's okay. And I do that for my clients. And if you are new to the podcast, because in the past couple of weeks, holy cow, my audience has just exploded. Like at the time of recording this, last week I had almost 500 downloads of my podcast, and typically I'm at like 150 to 200 per week. So that was an explosion. So if you are new here, hi, welcome. I help slow back the pack, injury-prone runners cross the finish line without feeling broken and have time for character stops and create a bigger buffer between you and the balloon ladies so you can worry less and still have still have energy to spend all that rest of your time in the Disney parks. So if you are somebody who's going for a sub 3-hour marathon, thank you so much for listening. This podcast is likely not for you. This is for somebody who's running 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Heck, I've even had a runner who has done an 18-minute per mile pace for her half marathon and marathon in the Dopey challenge. Now, she did start in the B corral. She had platinum, but that's the pace she was at. That's who I help. 13-minute per mile, 12-minute per mile. That's typically the runner who doesn't run fast enough for a proof of time, which would get you under 5 hours for a marathon and under 2.5 hours for a half marathon, as an example. And my Instagram has also exploded. So if you're here from Instagram, thank you so much for being here. My Instagram handle is runDisneyDPT. I love to hear when you're listening to this, and I do answer questions. So you send me a question in a DM, it's likely coming up in the podcast episode, and I appreciate it because if you have that question, somebody else also has that question. They may not have the guts to send me the DM and ask it. So I want to make sure that they get the answer as well. I keep it as kind of bland as possible or general as possible. Bland, what am I talking about? Food here? I am, fueling and hydration. But unless you say, oh, absolutely, use my name and stuff like that, I just say the question and any information I have about it, like pace and history and stuff like that. So thank you so much for listening. So where was I? I lost my train of thought because I went on a tangent. That doesn't happen too often, but here we are. So fueling and hydrating. So you are looking at this as not what mileage I'm running, but how long am I going to be out there? Because you need to sustain yourself over the course of those hours. So it's 60 to 90 grams of carbs per hour that you're out there on the course. And if you are someone who gets to the corrals really early and to get to the front of your corral so that you have an even bigger buffer between you and the balloon ladies just from circumstance, you also want to include a snack race morning in the corrals. Things that are out in 2026 are running fasted. Running fasted, if it worked for you in the past, that's great. You're probably listening to this episode because something has changed. And also, if you've run fasted and you think you do okay, I implore you to run fueled and see how much better you feel. Because it is wild. It reminds me of the Devil Wears Prada quote. Flippin' love this movie. I am a true elder millennial, and I love my late 90s, early 2000s movies. Devil Wears Prada, I love when Emily says something like, oh, thank you so much. I'm one stomach flu away from my goal weight. And what have you been doing? I've been eating nothing all day except when I feel like I'm going to faint, I eat a cube of cheese. We don't want that for our running journey. We don't want that in our daily life either. However, we certainly don't want it in our running journey. So if you have never run fueled, I really, really, really encourage you to try it. Now, don't go from 0 to 380 grams of carbs. You'll need to train your stomach because that is going to make you nauseous. That is going to make your stomach upset. But, maybe go for 100 grams of carbs or 150. Dabble with it. This is also why I recommend my clients start fueling as soon as they enter the program, as soon as they start training for a race. 3.1 miles, you're fueling. Not because you actually need it for the run, but because we need to train your stomach to be able to handle the food. If you've ever gotten super nauseous, cramping stomach because or when you eat, your stomach is not trained for either what you ate, the amount you ate, or the circumstances around when you're eating, right? Like we don't go and eat a big meal and then ride Everest, right? We don't do that. We don't maybe we have a few snacks. Or we aren't doing that in the teacups either. Maybe we have a light little snack because our stomach can't handle all of that jostling with a full, bulky cheeseburger meal. And there's nothing wrong with a cheeseburger. I love me a good cheeseburger. Don't you worry. But, right, like there are times and places, but we can start training our stomach with fueling with running. So if you're listening to this and you have been running fasted and you're doing Dopey in 3 days, maybe now's not the time. Maybe have a little dabble of a little bit of candy. I'm a huge fan of Nerds Gummy Clusters. Dabble with it, but don't do a complete overhaul. Do that for your next training program, your next phase of training. So as you know, there are 5 phases to a successful running journey in my world. That's your training phase, your taper phase, your race phase. We are in race phase right now. Rest and recovery phase, that will be immediately after your race. Like literally you cross the finish line, you start rest and recovery phase, and then you move into the build phase, or you skip the build phase and go right back into training phase if you're training for Disneyland Dumbo Double Dare, Princess Fairy Tale Challenge, Princess Half Marathon, Springtime Surprise, so on and so forth. But if you're done with your race season, then you go into the build phase before it's time to start training for your race again. So fueling 60 to 90 grams of carbs per hour. Carbs are sugars. Okay, you can have simple carbs, complex carbs. I talked in detail about that in the carb load section. We're going to talk a bit more about simple carbs. These are quick, fast acting. Your body will start using this in 20 minutes. Okay, and if it's certain kind of carbs, maybe even sooner. But on average, typically it's about 20 minutes. So you want things like liquid IV, scratch, gels, goo, honey stinger waffles, honey stinger whatever, sports beans, jelly beans, Nerds Gummy Clusters, gummy bears, Swedish fish, fruit snacks, things like pretzels, potatoes. You can use those. Those typically are used by like trail runners who are out there doing 50 plus miles or ultra marathons, which is technically anything more than 26.2, because they are out there for hours and hours and hours. Not saying you can't use them. Your body just digests them differently. I do recommend pretzels and goldfish for like 6.5, 7-hour marathoners, 3.5, 4-hour half marathoners who don't want something super sweet, or they also need something kind of salty. You can use that. Your body's going to use this in about 20 minutes. So you are fueling for yourself in 20 minutes. So many runners will tell me when they first start working with me, well, I don't really need anything throughout the run. But then I do hit a wall and I bonk and I can't keep going. My legs feel like lead. I just have no energy, or I start getting dizzy, lightheaded, or it's not until after I run and I'm starting to settle down that I'm just so nauseous. I'm so nauseous, I actually throw up, or my GI system is upset and I go and poop my pants. Those are signs, those are symptoms that you didn't fuel enough. You need to fuel early and often. I recommend starting at the 45-minute mark. Yes, I did talk about you need it 60 to 90 grams of carbs per hour. You're out there beyond 1 hour, but we're fueling for ourselves 20 minutes in the future. So we want to start fueling or having fuel at that 60-minute mark. So we need to start it at 45. It also helps you get more carbs in without just shoveling it in your face. So we're doing 60 to 90 grams per hour that we're out there, starting at 45 minutes. A good way to remember this is 1 gram of carbs per minute you're out there. So if you are doing a 3-hour half marathon, you are going to be out there for 180 minutes. It's 180 carbs, right? Because 3 times 60 is 180. 3 hours times 60 minutes is 180 minutes. 1 gram of carb per minute you're out there, 180. At least. You can go higher. The upper limit, you don't really need more than 90. And you are going to notice it's actually really hard to get even just the minimum, the 60 grams per hour. So for a 3-hour half marathon, 180 grams of carbs. If you're doing a 3.5-hour half marathon, 210 grams of carbs. If you are doing a 6-hour full marathon, that's 360 grams of carbs. If you are doing a 6.5-hour full marathon, 390 grams of carbs. If you are doing a 7-hour full marathon, that's 420 grams of carbs. To give you an idea how much you need to be eating. If you don't feel like you're eating constantly, you're not doing enough. With the exception, if you are doing a high carb fuel. So scratch is that you can do a hydrating powder, and they do 100-gram carb hydrating powder. So it's high carb scratch in powder form. Remember, don't try this for race week if you haven't already been doing it. But that will make it so that you don't have to constantly eat. If you do, if you're doing a 3.5-hour half marathon, you can do 2 of those and then some Nerds gummy clusters, and that will be enough. So that's how much you should be taking in during the race. But how often should you be doing it? So you need 60 grams of carbs per hour. Could you just wait until the hour mark and take all 60? Sure, you could. I don't know anybody that can do that. So what I recommend is do it in 20 or 15-minute increments. So if you're doing it in 15-minute increments, you're doing it 4 times in an hour. A good way to know how to do this or know when to do this is if you run a 15-minute per mile pace, do it at the mile markers, because every mile will be 15 minutes. Or heck, do it at the mile marker even if you're a 13-minute per mile runner, right? Like you can do it more often. You can do it sooner. You're going to feel like you're eating constantly, and that's okay. The goal is to spread it out so that you just don't have a lump sitting in your stomach, which can make your stomach cramp and you can feel more nauseous, just like if you didn't fuel. But if you space it out, then you can reduce the chances of all of that happening. And then hydrating. How do you hydrate? So as a runner, slow back the pack runner, you are going to be out there for a while. So you definitely need to be hydrating. You can do a double whammy with carbs in your hydration. So I mentioned scratch as one. There's liquid IV. There's a bunch of different kinds that have carbs and electrolytes in them. So electrolytes are going to be like vitamins and mineral type things in there that your body needs. Sodium, potassium, magnesium that your body needs in order to make your muscles work. There are also things like salt tabs. So for me, sometimes I need more salt. Sometimes I don't. I do run with low blood pressure. I actually just battled some low blood pressure last weekend. I woke up with it like 90/50, and I was symptomatic. That's just too low for me. So I need more sodium in cases like that. If I do a better job of keeping myself well hydrated with electrolytes throughout the day regularly, and I don't go hours with forgetting to drink, then I can keep it even keel. And when I go out for runs, I don't need extra salt and things like, and potassium and magnesium, things like that. I just need whatever's in my scratch and my liquid IV. But sometimes I do, and sometimes you do. So that's where things like salt tabs can come into play. Those are very handy. Or if you're a super salty sweater, you may need salt tabs. So to tell if you're a super salty sweater, super salty sweaters will have residue on their clothes after they run. So, like, you will literally see these white stains in areas that you have been sweating. And when it dries, it will come off. The actual salt will come off and you will be able to feel it. So, that's a quick way to tell, am I a salty sweater? I'm not a salty sweater. I'm not really a sweater. I don't sweat that much. I live in Las Vegas. But I never have. Royal, very salty sweater, or at least he used to be. And so that's how I know what it looks like, okay? You need to add in what you take out. So how much fluid and salt you should be taking in, how much are you expelling in your sweat? So if you're not sure how much hydration you should have, on a hot day, go for a run, but weigh yourself before and after. See how much you lost in sweat? You won't be able to tell how much salt you need, but you'll be able to tell how much fluid you lost. Now, you do need a scale that does decimal places because most people aren't losing. Well, some people might be losing like a pound of fluid. You might. And then that just tells you how much fluid you need to be taking in, or more than a pound. You know what? I shouldn't have said that. People lose different amounts of fluid, and you can weigh yourself before and after. You just have to remember to do it immediately. That's one way. Or just go off of historically what you need. If you're thirsty, you're an hour too late on hydrating. Remember, we are fueling and hydrating for our future self. Once you feel thirsty, that's your body's defense mechanism. It's its safety so that you don't get dangerously dehydrated. It's your cue, like you need to be drinking water. You need to be drinking in fluids. If you're already thirsty, you needed to start an hour earlier. So just have a constant flow of it. So the way I plan it out, I bring I think it's a 14-ounce bottle. I fill it up every chance I get. And every water station, every hydration station that has Powerade at the Disney races, I take Powerade. It has carbs in it and it has fluid and electrolytes. That's my game plan. Your game plan might be different, but I plan that every water station I'm stopping and I am filling up more of my bottle with the water they have, and I'm taking in more Powerade. And I have my Scratch and my Liquid IV. I do a combo because Liquid IV is a little too sweet for me, but it also doesn't have enough carbs. So I combine the strawberry lemonade Liquid IV with the strawberry lemonade Scratch. It balances out. The flavor's the same, but the salty, not sweet Scratch balances out the sweet Liquid IV. It's a very good balance. But so I have how many of those I need to take in by the end of the race. And so then I know how much I need to have taken in by the halfway point and by the 3/4 mark, and so on and so forth. And I literally, when I'm going through the water station, I'll double check, where am I? Am I at 7.5 miles for the half marathon? Have I had enough of my Scratch and Liquid IV? And I take inventory. Literally do that on the race. And I walk through all of the water stations. The amount of time you would save running through a water station, absolutely negligible by the end of it. Walk the water stations. Take your time, get some water, get some Powerade, fill up your bottle. It's going to be literal seconds. That is going to be the difference. It's going to be like 2 seconds. Now, granted, 2 seconds over 26.2 miles could be a whole minute. But do you think that you could make up those 2 seconds once you're through the water station? I think you could. I think that's realistic. I think it's reasonable as an expectation. So take this information, do what you can with it, and let me know how your race went. Please take what you've learned in this episode and use it to adjust your strategy for your RunDisney race training. It's not about doing more. It's about doing the right things in the right balance so you can finish strong, not broken. And if you want personalized guidance specific to your race, your injury history, your running background, and your goals, that's exactly what we do inside Stronger, Faster, Finisher. You'll get step-by-step instructions and a proven system to help you train smarter from start to finish. Join the waitlist today to be the first to know when it opens next. That's all for now. Talk to you soon.